The question of missionary activity in Islam has to be understood in the light of prophecy itself. The Quran says that we have sent prophets to all different spheres of time and space, and the word that is used for prophets in this sense is Anbiya or Nabi, who is an apostle, a prophet who brings the heavenly message to people. Then you have the second category of prophecy, that of a Rasul, a person who belongs to the higher category of prophecy, higher than that of a Nabi, who brings a special message that has to be spread, a special heavenly book that has to be brought to the attention of the people. Then you have the third category, which is the highest category, called ulul azm, the possessor of firmness and determination, which is even higher than that of Rasul. And according to the Islamic sources, there have been 7 such prophets who belong to the category of ulul azm, with Prophet of Islam, Sayyidina Muhammad as being the highest one.
We have to look very carefully to come up with examples of where the Prophet ﷺ's jalal shows through. There are 2 examples we can choose. One of them is at the time of the hijrah, when the Prophet ﷺ has moved from Makkah to Medina, and right before he enters Medina, he is met at the gates of Medina by a person who is also claiming to be a prophet. And this other person who's claiming to be a prophet is surrounded by 8 to 10 of his followers. And before Muhammad ﷺ enters Medina, this person says to the Prophet ﷺ, "You are claiming to be a prophet, I am also claiming to be a prophet." And then this false prophet makes a dua. The one among us who is a false prophet, let him be abandoned by his followers and let him die a very, very lonely death. At this, Muhammad ﷺ says, Ameen. And a second example, a very well-known incident when some of the well-known elites in Medina come to Muhammad ﷺ. There is a woman who has been charged with theft. She has been actually found guilty of stealing. And some of the companions of Muhammad ﷺ come to him and they say to the Prophet ﷺ that this woman is from a very noble family, O Prophet of Allah. Please, the punishment for stealing, please be a little bit lax in applying that punishment because she is from a noble family. The Prophet ﷺ says those very, very famous words, "I swear by Allah, if Fatima, the daughter of Muhammad, had stolen, I would cut her hands." Here is the jalal of Muhammad ﷺ again manifesting itself. The contemporary relevance of the Prophet ﷺ, his Jamal, Jalal, Kamal, is that in order to pursue wholeness, completeness, and perfection, our actions, both at the individual level and the collective level, should combine beauty and compassion on one hand, and fairness and justice on the other hand. It's when beauty, compassion, fairness, and justice come into a meaningful relationship and are embodied in human actions, it is at that point that the human being is on the way to becoming complete, whole, and perfect.
l-bashar بات کو بخوبی سمجھتے ہیں کہ ہم اس دنیا میں بھیجے گئے ہیں۔ اللہ رب العالمین نے اس دنیا کو ہمارے لیے امتحان گاہ بنایا ہے، دارالامتحان ہے، اور واضح لفظوں میں ارشاد فرمایا خلق الموت والحیات لیبلوکم ایکم احسن عملا۔ اللہ تعالیٰ نے موت اور زندگی پیدا کی، اس جہان کو بنایا یہ دیکھنے کے لیے کہ اس جہان میں رہنے والوں میں سے کس کا عمل بہت اچھا ہے اور سب سے بہتر ہے۔ ہمیں سب سے بہتر عمل کا، سب سے بہتر کردار کا مظاہرہ کرنا ہے، اور سب سے بہتر کردار کے مظاہرے کے لیے رکاوٹیں بھی ہوتی ہیں، مشکلات بھی ہوتی ہیں، ان کو برداشت کرنا رسول اللہ صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم کی سنت ہے۔ آپ کو مفادات کی توقعات بھی دلائی گئیں۔ رسول اللہ صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم نے کیا جواب دیا؟ اللہ اکبر۔ آپ نے فرمایا کہ اگر میرے ایک ہاتھ پر چاند رکھ دیں اور دوسرے ہاتھ پہ سورج رکھ دیں تب بھی میں اپنے مشن سے نہیں ہٹوں گا۔ مجھے اپنے مشن کو کامیاب کرنا ہے، تمہیں جو کرنا ہے تم کرو، مجھے جو کرنا ہے وہ میں کروں گا۔ چنانچہ مخالفین اسلام نے، دشمنان اسلام نے، مشرکین اسلام نے آپ پر کوئی کسر نہ چھوڑی، ایسی مصیبت، ایسی تکلیف جو آپ کے آگے لا سکتے تھے انہوں نے لانے میں کچھ دریغ نہ کیا۔ اور کمال ہے رسول اللہ صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم کا کہ آپ نے خندہ پیشانی کے ساتھ ان مشکلات کو برداشت کیا، ان تکالیف کو برداشت کیا، اور اللہ کا یہ حکم قرآن میں جگہ جگہ ہمارے سامنے ہے، واعف عنہم، ان سے درگزر کرو، یہ نادان ہیں، یہ نہیں جانتے۔ حتیٰ کہ جب آپ جنگ احد کے اندر زخمی ہوئے، صحابہ کرام نے کہا یا رسول اللہ ان زخمی کرنے والے، ان پتھر مارنے والوں پر بد دعا کیجئے۔ آپ نے کیا جواب دیا؟ فرمایا انما بعثت رحمتاً، میں تو رحمت بنا کر بھیجا گیا ہوں، وما بعثت لعانا، میں بد دعا کرنے کے لیے نہیں بھیجا گیا۔
If dawah or inviting people to the message of Islam is so important that raises the issue of the Islamic ethics of dawah. The Prophet also said, لَيْسَ الدِّينُ إِلَّا الْحُبِّ. There is no religion without love, and hence the dawah must be done with love and knowledge. A person who does dawah is called da'i, and he has to be a person of a higher level of knowledge and piety. He must understand the Islamic sciences, he must understand the Quran, its tafasir and ta'wil, he must understand the hadith, the sunnah of the Prophet. And now one cannot expect that everybody will be at the highest level of scholarship and the highest scholars in the world will be the only da'is. And hence the dawah takes place across different sections of society, amongst different social classes with different discourses, and people from the Islamic world participate in it. The Islamic ethics of dawah, of course, the utmost important thing is to not push people and do not make religion compulsory for people. And when people are brought the knowledge of Islam, it is important to realize for the da'i is that one must not win an argument and lose a person's heart. The decision to switch to a different religion, to convert to a different religion, is not a decision that is taken at a cognitive level. It is taken at the level of the heart. The discussion of freedom of religion in an Islamic context is a very important one, especially these days. And there are 2 points to be mentioned in this, 2 aspects of freedom of religion in an Islamic society or Islamic state. The first situation is in which there is one state, a society, which has multiple religious communities. You have Buddhists, Hindus, Zoroastrians, and so forth living under an Islamic state or inside an Islamic society. In this situation, it is important that the adherents of different faiths can all practice their religion freely, number one. Second, they should have the freedom of changing into another religion, the conversion. Number 3, they should have the choice of not having any religion at all. Especially in today's conception of human rights and so forth, these 3 points are frequently discussed. Having the freedom to practice one's religion, having the freedom to switch faiths, and having the freedom not to practice any faith at all. By and large, most of these things have been realized in Islamic history. In most periods of Islamic history, you've had Muslims who had the freedom to practice their own faith and allowed all the other religious communities to practice their faith as well. The conversions took place. Mostly conversions took place from other religions into Islam, but occasionally, quite rarely actually, some conversions took place into other faiths, or those people who reverted from religion and chose not to have any kind of religious affiliation at all. The second situation is in which you have one state with one state religion. And the freedom of religion in that type of state would mean that all of the sects, different sects belonging to that religious world, all have the freedom to practice their faith within the confines of the laws of those states. And in this as well, the Muslim world has remarkably has a record of all of different sects, different religious sects within the abode of Islam practicing freely. The Shias practice their faith, different branches within Shiism, different branches within Sunnism, different schools of thought continue to operate throughout the Islamic history. But today, modernity brings a special challenge because the modern statecraft has changed and people's expectations from the state itself have changed. The Quran in Surah number 42, verse number 48 says that we have not sent you as a guard over them. Your duty is just to convey the message. Other surahs of the Quran are replete with verses in which there is no compulsion in the matters of faith, and God has instructed the Muslims to leave people alone in the matters of faith. However, the hadith has many elements in it that may seem conflicting to the Quranic spirit, but in reality they are not. One case in point is the Prophet ordered that all apostates should be slain. But at the same time, the Sahih Muslim, which is the source of this hadith, also narrates an anecdote in which a Bedouin from the desert who has a very high fever somehow superstitiously thinks that it must be due to his conversion into Islam. And he goes to the Prophet and asks for letting go of his pledge to Islam. The Prophet kept quiet. He came back again and asked the Prophet if he can absolve the pledge to Islam. The Prophet kept quiet again and did not allow so. Upon that Bedouin left the Muslim community in Medina, and when he left, no harm was done to him. The important question to realize is, especially in the Covenant of Medina, in which the Prophet is at once the Supreme Pontiff of God and also a statesman, that there are certain ideological underpinnings in an Islamic state, and the allegiance to the state and the society should be there. So you cannot allow different people who actually do not share in the ideological presuppositions of the state to jeopardize the security of others. Even in the modern state, one has to take an oath of allegiance with a flag. And if you give up your citizenship, you lose your right to participate in the civic and political life of their country. And Islamic community in the early days was more or less the same.
رسول الله يا Rasulullah